Representative Ocasio-Cortez, you're up for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bivin, in your testimony, you highlight that oil and gas production on the outer continental shelf has doubled in the last decade. Yet in Louisiana, direct employment in oil and gas extraction has fallen by 27%, correct?
Yes.
And you also write that jobs for drilling oil and gas wells have plummeted by 62% between 2008 and 2019, correct?
Yes, that's from an El Mogo report, yes.
That's staggering. When we're talking about even just job creation in general, the job development of this industry has been plummeting. We've heard witnesses tout the job benefits of offshore oil and gas, but it is undeniable that the workforce is already in transition. Ms. Bivin, you highlight several key opportunities, though, for the federal government to support this workforce and spur economic activity. Could you outline what some of those opportunities are?
Absolutely. I want to provide a little context on why those jobs are declining. The industry is just getting better at producing more oil and gas. They're hitting deeper plays, and they just require less service companies and less workers. And so that is why there's been a bipartisan, enthusiastic support for offshore wind in Louisiana. But decommissioning of retired infrastructure no longer in use provides a huge opportunity for workforce, specifically those 18,000 miles of pipelines that are decommissioned in place. They're serving no commercial purpose. They're just sitting on the seafloor. And, those operators agreed with the federal government to remove them, and that provides an opportunity for workers today. The Secretary of the Interior can order those companies today to remove them, and that'll put boats that are docked to work, that'll put workers to work. And then, of course, there's idled oil and gas wells. There's a lot of opportunities.
So we can start the process of spurring an enormous amount of job creation just by enforcing and demanding the cleanup of these 18,000 miles of pipeline, correct?
Absolutely.
And these decommissioning and coastal restoration jobs can help bridge the gap as we stand up the offshore wind industry in the Gulf, which offshore oil and gas workers are particularly well equipped to take up. Can you expand on how the federal government can support a transition for these oil and gas workers to ensure that good, dignified, family-sustaining jobs in clean energy like offshore wind can continue?
For sure, and indeed, it's a precondition for a lot of the work that we want to do. Those pipelines, those unplugged oil and gas wells, they're in the way of borrow areas for coastal restoration projects. If we want big dredge boats out there dredging for sand to rebuild Louisiana's coast, we need to remove that infrastructure. But a sustained commitment to diversification and decarbonization of our economy is necessary for a just transition. And one idea we have proposed is the creation, for instance, of a new federal administration, the Abandoned Well Administration, because we know that there are thousands of unplugged oil and gas wells, both onshore and offshore. And what we're seeing is that even though we're providing an ample amount of federal funds, that states are still finding it difficult to have the equipment and people to do this work swiftly. And we propose the creation of a new administration to directly employ displaced oil and gas workers to actually have the infrastructure and to have field offices to do this work in perpetuity, because we know that the volume is huge and the failure rate of plug jobs will necessitate that.
Thank you, Ms. Bivin. And I wanted to pivot a little bit into terms of wages and worker conditions. We've been seeing lately that even as profits increased, average wages in the industry are declining. And what we're seeing as well is that half of some of these folks surveyed in a document I'd like to submit to the record have lost their jobs at least once prior to 2020. Ms. Bivin, do you believe that there's sufficient government oversight on offshore worker safety?
No.
And how do you believe we can change this?
We could craft actual uniform rules instead of delegating to an industry trade group to create those rules and to the operator themselves. It's very deferential to the operator, and workers don't have a union. They really have no one on their side if that something is unsafe that is happening. And so uniform, predictable rules and a regulator that is empowered to enforce them, not just to suggest them, I think would go a very long way. And this staggered leasing schedule provides us an opportunity to pause and really evaluate the program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your insight. I yield back to the chair.
Representative Ocasio-Cortez, did you want to submit something for the record?
Yes.
Without objection.
Thank you.